my personal experience with San Pedro is that I was working with ayahuasca. I was working with some curanderos before. It was mostly focused on ayahuasca and some other what are called master plants. And a friend of mine who was her name is Beck. She was working with San Pedro, and she convinced me to try it, and it was just a really strong experience for me. I enjoyed it, and I got a lot out of it. And from that moment, I kind of felt respectful towards that plant, and I expanded what I was working with ayahuasca to also include San Pedro as well.
What do you experience usually? Are there some common points of every experience?
Sure. There's definitely some things that always happen for me. There's when it's starting to come on, I feel like goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
So my skin feels like it has a little indentations, or goosebumps. I always feel nauseous for about an hour, maybe 2 hours after I take it. From there, it can be different depending on how strong it is. Sometimes it can be hallucinogenic, where I can see things. Mostly, it's mild, where it might take a visual like the sky, which is let's say traditionally a lot of blue. It might add some purples and some pinks to that equation. If it's a strong hallucinogenic, like a strong dose, then it can change things in a very interesting way. For instance, at one point I was working on a balance beam, and I was on the second floor looking down at the street, and the street rose up. Something transparent that I could see through rose up from the street a few feet, and I could see into that transparency, and inside of it were geometric patterns. And as I was balancing on the balance board, I was also focusing on the geometric patterns. And as I focused more on the patterns, I found that I didn't have to take care of the issue of balance. It was this just interesting not like leaving my body, but leaving my a thought process behind as I focused on something else, and that something else was very interesting. It was beyond something that I had experienced and things I had experienced before with like LSD.
What was the last experience? How was it?
For me, the last experience was very mild. So what happened was that during the nauseous period, it's really for me a choice at that point whether or not I want to have a strong experience or if I want to have a medium or a mild experience. And the last one, I chose at one point to throw up. And after I did throw up, I noticed that it was quite mild compared to the last two ceremonies I've had before. And so I was expecting something medium, but it was a little bit more mild for me that way.
Did you have any mystical experience then?
No, I definitely didn't. On the last one was a little bit mild, but the two times before that would be much more. This is more of a mystical feeling. It's a feeling that it feels like 200. I'm like a 100-watt bulb, light bulb, and 200 watts are going through me. It feels like there's certain positions that I need to stretch my body into. It feels like there's a release that I'm looking for, and also there's a meditation part to it. This is more normal for me now to experience when I'm on San Pedro, and this is at a very strong dose. So it's feeling very kind of sacred as I'm having that experience. But yeah, my last one was very mild.
Mm-hmm. And did you anytime met some spirits?
With San Pedro, no. So it's unlike ayahuasca, which is can be very visual. I find the San Pedro to be a curiosity in that respect, not as much as showing me something specific so that I can come to some kind of aha moment, or to speak to some kind of other entity, which can happen with ayahuasca. it more sends me, if I have that type of experience, it's as if it's just showing me the patterns in life, that there's a geometry to it, a beautiful kind of geometry, and it shows me that. And in that way, it's kind of enlightening. It's a very different experience.
What can be the worst experience that you have seen or you have had in your experience?
Okay, so the worst actually happened quite recently. It was about 3 ceremonies ago. I was testing out a new batch, and it was very, very strong. I took everybody out for the day. We came back kind of early to the spot to here where there were some other people that were not on San Pedro, and one of the clients that I was out with started to kind of laugh, but there was something to the laugh that was, I could tell that something was not quite right. And from there, they went into the best thing I could call it is a loop. But they basically went through maybe 4 or 5 actions, and he had like these statements, like he would say like, "Hey boys," and he would be talking to, waving at his friends or something, and kind of maybe grabbing himself a little bit. And then after that, he would yell out hypnosis, and then he would go something about it's happened. Here we go again. And then there was another part to it, and at the end, he would, as if like he would go, but he would go as loud as he could, like, and then it would begin all over again. And
How many times?
this was happening for a couple hours, and I had my friend Ashley was around for that, and I pulled him in, and he ended up pulling him out of the loop with some tobacco and some Icaros, with some songs of protection.
How was feeling that person afterwards?
They didn't have the memory. They didn't have any memory of that event.
Mhm. And ayahuasca can cause the same effect, or what's the
Ayahuasca is
difference?
can I've seen a lot of things on ayahuasca. What I experienced on the San Pedro would be like not a big deal on ayahuasca. This kind of stuff would be normal there in that realm. It was so I've seen a lot of things like this before. A lot of things that you would think of as strange with ayahuasca. I had never experienced anything too strange with San Pedro before, so that was when it crossed over. That's where I I was a little uncomfortable with how strong it was, only because I don't want to. I want to work with something that has less responsibility. Like ayahuasca there's a lot of responsibility involved and a lot of strange things that can happen. So it's really good to have curandero overseeing it, especially in the beginning when you don't have experience with this kind of stuff.
And what is the difference between San Pedro, ayahuasca, and the drugs?
Sure. Okay. So first, we'll just talk about the difference between San Pedro and drugs. Okay. So drugs is so when we use the language drugs, I would say that you might change the way that you speak about it when you try something new. So I came out of the culture of drugs. So everything I was trying was drugs. I tried LSD. I've tried mushrooms. I've tried all kinds of things, and I would classify them in my head as a drug. The shift when I talk about San Pedro, when I talk about ayahuasca, I call them medicine. And the reason why I do that is because the shift that happens when you start having experiences with these other types of things, like ayahuasca, like San Pedro, is that it doesn't have the same feeling to it. Like ayahuasca feels like, first of all, I didn't necessarily enjoy my experience. I might have been terrified at some points. I might have been very nauseous for sure at other points, throwing up, having to go to the washroom. But I understand that it seems to be doing something beneficial for me. I feel that I'm a better person for these experiences. That it enriches my life because of that, and in that way, I start to change my dialect to reflect that, and so I changed what I would call drugs before into medicine, because it seems to have a medicinal effect on me, and that I feel better for these experiences rather than what you might experience with your traditional drugs, which is, if you're taking them on the regular, you can look at things like addiction, or you can look at things like not feeling like a better person because of them, or a very short term experience of something that might be pleasurable, but you can see very quickly has a long term detriment.
And after San Pedro and ayahuasca, you need few days to recover. Yeah.
With ayahuasca, there's actually there's usually a really awesome recovery. There's even talk of feeling euphoric. I've experienced this many times, of taking it and the next day you actually feel better, like you feel really good. With San Pedro, I feel it's a little bit different. In my experience, it's because of this energy flow that seems to come through on a really strong San Pedro experience. It feels like a lot of energy comes through, and the next day I can have a bit of like a frazzled feeling, like I just did a lot the day before, whether more like a mental marathon or something. So the next good day can be I like to be kind of chill, but it's not in a way where like you're going through withdrawal or you're getting angry or anything. It's just like something. Went through some stuff yesterday, and I need to really just be quiet or chill today. So it's a different experience for sure. But yeah, not like a burnout or anything like that. Just like ayahuasca is good. San Pedro's a little.
And what's the difference in between San Pedro and ayahuasca? I don't know if you can.
Okay, so I'll give you the traditional understanding is that we were looking at male, female energy. We're looking at the sun and the moon. The ayahuasca is the moon energy. The done at night kind of paralyzes you under it. The entity that people are speaking with, they call it Mother Ayahuasca, and it seems to be agreed upon by everyone who drinks it that the energy is female. So then you look at the San Pedro. You've got the sun, the characteristics of the cactus, the the look of the cactus is like phallic, like it has these, and the energy of it as you take it in and experience it is more masculine. It's moving. It's things are kind of come in a little in a different way of teaching you things. It's just it's the night and day effect of it, and it seems to be understood by these people who have used it for a long time, that this is the way that it is, and when you experience it, it just is. So it's kind of cool to see everything just kind of go into alignment.
And you said the San Pedro is a cactus, and what is ayahuasca? What kind of plant is it?
Ayahuasca is actually two different plants. So you've got the vine, which is the vine of the dead, the ayahuasca vine, and then you've got the traditionally chacruna leaf, and they're both stacked and boiled, and what comes out of the two of them is actually the ayahuasca brew, the tea that's drank. The main active ingredient in that being dimethyltryptamine, the DMT, and so that's what mixed with, that's the active ingredient of it, but mixing it with what's going on inside the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna creates that, it takes all of it to create this jungle experience. The San Pedro, the active ingredient is mescaline, So it's a different animal that's going through you on the two as well.
And traditionally, what age people usually start to take
Okay, so
San Pedro and ayahuasca?
So this one was shocking to me, but there's no age. So I've seen ayahuasca ceremonies with babies.
With babies?
With babies, yeah. So,
Like small infants? Or?
yeah, babies.
But
I've seen it with children. I've seen it with babies. Yeah,
It was ayahuasca or San Pedro?
ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah. The San Pedro, I haven't seen any ceremonies with small children, but I don't know if there's going to be a lot of I don't know if that would be I don't think that would be a big deal coming from some of the things I've seen with ayahuasca. I think that you would also, I think I could also see the children taking it as well. Oh, I did it one time with a 13-year-old girl. There's a daughter of one of my friends took it with us. She seemed to really enjoy herself, and she was laughing quite a bit. Seemed like she enjoyed her day for sure.
Yeah, do you have any funny histories about this?
Funny to me with San Pedro is more like the information that is coming through. It seems to be intelligent. So to me, that's funny. It's funny, like, huh, okay. So I really enjoy, like for instance, I was telling this story earlier, but everything in the room looks normal, but there's a poster, and on that poster is an old woman, and the old woman in the poster has her hands in a prayer position, and she has her eyes closed, and she has like a mushroom head or something, and there's like these mushrooms on top of it. And as I walked into the room on a really strong San Pedro experience, everything looked normal, and I looked over onto the poster, and the poster wasn't normal anymore. The poster, her hands in that prayer position, were now going like 360 degrees around her head. At the same time, she was now like three-dimensionally smiling, and her head was going back and forth like this, and like the most beautiful kind of face. And on her head, the mushrooms were dancing now, like waving back and forth. And it was like, a full experience was going on there. And I would look away and everything would be normal. And then I would look back again and it was just full on happening. And it still amazes me of like why that, why that poster, why that vibe, how did each individual thing have its own movements and patterns. Just really interesting. Usually San Pedro really gets me with like sometimes when it's psychedelics. It isn't always. It's not so much known. I make a really strong San Pedro. It's not always known for high psychedelics, but when it is, it's pretty interesting.
And why and when would you recommend people to take San Pedro?
I'd say that's a more individual calling. It's in the same realm, I would say, as if you could take that out and say mushrooms or these kind of it's like a medium to mild type of psychoactive ingredient. I think that everybody should and to check it out, to have their own experiences. I don't. It's a weird area. I don't want to recommend that everybody do it, but I personally feel that I got a lot out of these types of experiences, and I find it interesting the storyline of from these other I come from Canada, from the kind of concepts and ways that things are like that are thought of over there. There's a lot of fear, and it's a lot of fear backed up by laws of things being illegal and stuff like that. I think we should all have. I think that we should all have a free will to decide what we want to do with ourselves and our bodies. And I think that what you find very quickly is that there doesn't need to be a fear around something like this. that it seems to be sending a very positive vibe, a very positive message. It's been very beneficial for me. I work with it with other people. On the very, what I'm hearing back is, at the very least, is thank you for a beautiful day is what people are experiencing. And on a higher level, some of those people are experiencing what could be called more like spiritual experiences, and these people are very happy to have them and feel that they're beneficial in their life. And personally, I've had these experiences as well, and I find them very beneficial, and I'm happy that I have those things in my life, and I hope they continue. And these are some of the ways that I use to kind of tune into those things.
Do you have something more that would you like to add? Like,
I don't know. I think you got me.
wonderful.
I like working with it. I like working with ayahuasca. It's fun to work with people who both have never tried these experiences before and are sometimes opened up to these new concepts. And it's also fun to work with people who are experienced with these things and they have even more enlightening experiences with you. So it's like for me, it's like an adventure. I get to do something where I feel good about sharing these experiences with people, and they can give knowledge to people who have no clue about this kind of things, and they can feel kind of in the right hands. But I'm also getting a lot of it out of these experiences as well. A lot of really cool connections, and being able to give people like experiences that they seem happy about. So
Yeah,
it's fun to work with it.
yeah, and it's very nice that you take care of the people when you go for the trip together.
Yeah, at some point you become, comfortable in these realms. So once you're comfortable in these realms, then you can start to take care of some other people who are going through some stuff while you're also enjoying your experience, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. So it's fun to share it with other people as well. Kidding.
I hope that your healing center will be very famous.